Ben Hunt Davis, welcome to the Mindset Advantage podcast. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thanks for inviting me. It's great to join you.
Recently read your incredible book, Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? There's so much insight in here. As a mental performance coach, I was underlining so many tactics. I wish I told you earlier. I wish I would have got my hands on this book earlier. Let's first catch the readers up with this tremendous story. Take me back a couple decades here, leading up to the 2000 Olympics. What was it like? Set the table for my audience.
Yeah, so it is going back a few decades. So I was in the British rowing team, crew team, for 10 years, and most of the time, we didn't do very well. Most of the time ended in each year, World Championships or Olympics ended in bitter disappointment. And for the first two Olympics, first five World Championships, it was always the same. My best result was sixth, so last in the final, which is not a great place to be, or finishing seventh or eighth, which is in the kind of the B final, which is even worse place to be. And each year I came away thinking, that sucked, but if I work harder, if I work hard, it'll be okay. And it took me quite a long time to realize that approach just wasn't working. I mean, most people know the saying, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. Clearly, I was a slow learner. It took me some time to figure that out. And we then had, as a crew, I was in the 8-man boat, so 9 of us, 8 rowers, 1 cox. We had 2 years to go to the Sydney Olympics. We had 1 year till Olympic qualification, then another year to go to the Olympics. And we realized that we needed to change. We needed to change our approach of how we went about doing what we were doing, how we trained, how we thought about it, how we prepared, so that we had a chance of getting a different result. And we started by talking about what are we really trying to do? What do we really want to achieve? Because not everybody in sport is trying to win. In most kind of sports leagues, you've got the teams at the bottom. Certainly in Europe, the teams at the bottom don't want to get relegated, and that's their goal. Teams in the middle want to stay safe, and the teams at the top want to try and win. So, and it transpired, some of us were wanting to win at the Olympics, some wanted to qualify for the Olympics, and there were different ambitions, which meant we behaved differently, which meant it was hard to trust different people, which meant, all sorts of stuff followed from that. And so we started talking about what do we really want to do? There was going to be a team of about 70 people involved in this. What do we really want to do? We got alignment around that. Then we started to figure out how we were going to do it. And we had this 2-year journey to change so that we had a chance of getting a different result. And the goal was really simple. We wanted to be a gold medal winning team. That's what the goal we agreed. And then we had to figure out how to do it with what we had, because what we had on paper wasn't good enough. So we had to find a way of doing it. And that's the story, the story of change and thinking about stuff differently so we could do stuff differently, so we could be faster than anyone else.
And tell me about the title. So, Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? So simple, yet so damn profound. Where did that come in? When did that moment strike? What was that like?
So we had agreed that we wanted to be a gold medal winning team. We wanted, and I've kind of phrased it like that because of the 70 people, 9 would race. And so if we just always were talking about being gold medalists, then what about the majority of the team? So, it was clear a gold medal would be at the end of it for certain people, but to be a gold medal winning team where everybody was part of this thing to win a gold medal. And so we kind of went, that was the goal. And it was a kind of few months in where one of the guys just was late for training again. I mean, Lewis was just had a real problem with telling the time. I mean, he was just, and he was late for training again. And I remember, I think it was Simon, one of the other boys in the boat, just went, "You're just not making the boat go faster." I went, "Yeah, that's it. Actually, that's how we boil it down, and that is just the question. The question is everything we're doing, is it making the boat go faster?" And the simple version is, will it make the boat go faster? And then you've got, but you can't do everything. You can't do everything. You've got to choose what you do, and you've got to choose what you don't do, because there's a level of impact, there's a level of importance about what you do. So you can't just go, everything will make the boat go faster. You've got to be a bit cleverer than that and go, well, all these things will make the boat go faster, but I can't do everything. So these are the things that are most important, and you prioritize your time and the energy you've got and you choose what you don't do rather than spreading yourself thin of going, I've got to do a bit of everything because that doesn't work.
It's such a great motto for life. That's what I love about this. One of my favorite all-time quotes is from James Clear, author of Atomic Habits. He says this: every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. I'll say that again. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. So it begs to ask, who are you voting for? Are you voting for a person that you want to become? Are you voting for somebody that's maybe in your past or somebody else? Every action you take, that ever since I heard that, Ben, that quote years ago, I can't get it out of my head. And I love it because it drives every decision I make. Is it making me closer or further away from the type of person I want to become? I think it's similar to what you're talking about.
And the vote we wanted to make was to be Olympic champions. That was, with each decision, with each discussion, with each action and behavior, we had to go, will this help us be Olympic champions? Or not? And that requires some really difficult decision making. But you've got to vote for how you spend your time, how you spend the calories of energy you've got to be spending on the right stuff.
I'm curious.
And
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, it just leads to difficult decisions and choosing not to do some things that have seemed really important in the past.
A big part of this is team dynamics. I want to get into it at some point in this conversation. So we have 9 on the team. You obviously have 70 that are involved. There's a lot of probably different personalities, different ability levels. There's a lot of differences here. In my work as a team consultant, Ben, what I'm seeing sometimes when frustration arises, it's when somebody's frustrated because another coach or another athlete is not putting in as much effort as they are. And I really talk a lot about this idea of task versus relationship. There's a lot of people that are very task oriented. I am here to win at all costs. I don't really care if you like me or not. I'm here to win. There's other people. I'm here for relationships. I want to make sure you trust me. I trust you. Relationships first, winning comes second. And there's kind of this dichotomy back and forth. And I think ideally you sit in the middle and you have a little bit of both. But when frustration arises is when you have a team that has both ends of the spectrum, nobody in the middle. So if we were to combine that along with people giving different amounts of effort, because I'm seeing that in my work, what are your thoughts? What have you learned on getting everybody on the same page, putting in the same effort, everybody agreeing, task relationship? How does that all work in your world?
Um, so we agreed what was most important. And what was most important was boat speed, not relationships. The outcome had to be boat speed. Now, in order to do that, we had to be able to be straight and honest with each other. We had to be able to push each other. We had to be able to help each other. We needed to have relationships to make the boat go faster. The most important thing was boat speed. And so we had to keep coming back to that. And I mean, we made in fact, the last selection decision we made was 12 weeks before the Olympics. There were 2 guys going for the last seat in the boat. One guy I'd rowed with for 5 years. I got married 3 weeks after the Olympics, and this guy was the only person in the crew at that point I'd invited to my wedding. And it was between him and another guy who was, been in the group for 18 months. And the data on both people was the same. You couldn't separate the data. I mean, and the coach came around and asked each of us who we thought should be in the boat, my mate or the other one. And I said the other guy, because I thought he would learn faster over the last 12 weeks. I made a decision based on boat speed, not on relationships. Now, let's say we had to have quality relationships where we could have the right kind of conversations, but making decisions based on friendship or ease of relationship or anything else, that wasn't what we had agreed was most important. So I think the clarity about the final thing you want is really important. And then I think the bit about effort is really interesting. So I think I worked pretty hard. I think I was kind of known in the team for being a drafter. People didn't very often, give me a hard time for lacking effort and energy. They might have given me a hard time for other stuff, but not that. Simon, the guy who sat directly in front of me, I mean, he just his commitment, the amount that he could do was called into question quite often. Um, and we kind of realized unfairly he had a certain amount that he could give. In fact, the guy 2 seats in front of me, Lewis, before every single morning before we started training, he did about an hour and a half of core work because he had kind of various different back issues. So the morning of the Olympic final, when we were all in the main dining hall at 5 a.m., he had already done an hour and a half of strengthening work. Now I was committed, but I wasn't that committed. I think we all had different levels that we were able to give. And so long as we understood what was most important and we could communicate with each other about what we were capable of doing, one of the guys in the boat did less training than other people. If he did the same amount as everyone else, he broke. And we needed him in the boat. So we had to have an understanding of what people were capable of doing. And we had to have a trust that we were all doing what we were capable of doing, but we had different capabilities. And that's human. We're just different. But so long as we're all doing everything we could about what was most important, that's the best we could do.
I love that. So I'm hearing two things. One, being very clear about where we're going. That's the
Yep.
catalyst. And then another
Yep.
piece too, I don't want to overlook is being able to be comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. You talk about, I love the way you put this in your book, chapter 7, high performance conversations. You say what needs to be said, hear what needs to be heard. The quote in the book says this: if you see something that's not as good as it could be and you choose not to discuss it, you're helping us lose. So I think that's another component I'd love to dive in with you. When you're working with 9 guys, 70 total, how does that go? I'm gonna guess that during those years there were some difficult conversations. How did you do that tactfully?
Depending on who the person was. So one of the guys in the crew, and he was a big unit. He was, 6'8", 105 kilos. What's that? 210 pounds or so. He's, big enough guy. He was a delicate flower. And if we kind of phrased stuff wrong, if we're a bit blunt, he got all upset. And so we had to improve our skill at being able to give feedback, being able to communicate, because different people had different needs. And across the whole team. So within the whole wider team of 70, quite a few people were volunteers. And so if I take one of the boatmen, a guy called John Brockway, he was a volunteer. He knew that he would never get a bonus because there was no money. He would never get an Olympic medal because the bowman doesn't get an Olympic medal. He was just taking time away from his earnings in order to help us. And we needed him to be able to challenge people. We needed him to go to the sports arc and say, this is what I heard, or this is what I saw. We needed him to come to me and say, Ben, when you did this, this is what I thought, or have you thought about that? So some of those conversations, there are kind of different levels within the group, are potentially really hard. But if John chose not to raise my awareness to something that he had seen or heard, he knew that I desperately wanted to win. He knew that it was the most important thing to me. So why would he choose not to help me? And so we had to create an environment where John, understood that he could be fairly blunt with me in most ways, and I would kind of listen and I would get it. I might be pissed off, but the next day I would come back and go, yeah, I didn't react well, I'm sorry, but I've kind of had to think about it. And we had to work out how to communicate with different people so the message could be heard, because different people will hear or not hear stuff. Some people react calmly in the moment. Some people fly off the tempo. If it was a really difficult message, everyone knew I got a bit pissed off. But the next day I would come back and go, right, can we talk about this? Can you explain a bit more? Because I just had a bit of time to calm down and to, think it over and go, the only reason they said that is because they need me to win. So therefore, I've got to find out more. So, saying stuff so that it could be heard by different people, there's a mindset in there, but there's also a communication skill. When you hear people going, I've told you 1,000 times, my immediate reaction is, you idiot. Why have you told them 1,000 times? It clearly hasn't worked. Try telling them something different and see if you can get them to hear it. So we had a responsibility about how stuff landed rather than how we gave information.
I
Again, we
love
got it
this.
wrong lots of times.
I love this piece on 179. This is a great framework. I'm a framework model type thinker. And so we're talking about high performance conversations, difficult conversations. This is what you said, that first ask for feedback. And I love that. That's how you come at it first. It's a questions first. What am I missing? How can I be a little bit better? There's a curious component there. Second is tell it how you see it. Third is make a decision. So first ask the question. So I'm asking, not pointing the finger. Then tell how you see it. Then make a decision. The order there is really important, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think you can get to so we got to a point where feedback was generally really easy to give because we had practiced and done it and done it and done it. I think if you're not in that position, trying to move a feedback culture forward, the easiest way to start is by asking. Is by before a thing saying, can you watch out for this? I'm working on this. Can you give me some feedback on it? If you're going in kind of after something and going, what did you think of how I did? Then the person might go, well, I don't know, I wasn't looking for it. So if we can be specific beforehand and going, before going into this session, I want to improve this bit. Can you help me with it? You're then making it so easy for the person to give you feedback. And you can then seeing how you react when they go, oh, I thought this or I thought that. And, they can see how you react. And then it just becomes easier for them at the next point to go, you didn't ask for it, but, this is what I saw. Is this right? And yeah, just, kind of starting from an easy point. And I say when teams get more, kind of developed and trust is greater and communication skills better, it then becomes easier and easier and easier.
I said earlier that the will it make the boat go faster is a simple concept, but not an easy concept. There's a difference there. It's simple in the fact that, hey, every decision just goes through this funnel. However, it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. I'm going to imagine you guys had some sessions on the rower in the more. I mean, there was probably some grueling times. So if we know that it's going to be a simple decision making process, but not easy. Walk me through how you guys overcame some of those tough challenges of hard sessions, staying motivated. Because at that moment when all 70 of you were together and you said, we're going to go gold medal, there was probably a lot of excitement in the room. I'm sure there was. But days later, weeks later, maybe months later, it started to wear off just a little bit. I'm sure there were moments. Again, I'm just presuming here. Correct me if I'm wrong. How did you overcome those moments when motivation started to disappear?
So I think you're right in saying it's kind of simple but not easy. The theory behind it all is, I mean, it's common sense. It's obvious, but it's the doing of it that is the hard bit. Understanding a framework for making decisions is great. We can do that, but then emotion comes into it, ego comes into it, and the whole thing becomes much harder. And you're right in terms of staying motivated. We had good days and bad days. As everybody does. No one's playing from a 10 the whole time. No one's at their best the whole time. And we had days that were just, they just didn't work. We had weeks where we thought we were going backwards. We had months that were just where we couldn't see the progress. We couldn't see things changing. We seemed to be kind of stuck and it was really hard. And then kind of, and when you're exhausted, it becomes even harder again. The whole thing becomes more emotional and it becomes harder. But there were 70 of us. And when I was on my knees, Chris, the sports side, probably wasn't. He was probably doing all right. Or, Morag, one of the physios, she was probably doing all right. And we had a duty as a team of 70 to look out for when people were on their knees and help them. Look out for when people are having a really bad time and help them. And there were a few, so that was kind of one proactive thing we did. Another proactive thing about motivation is we had what we called an evidence wall. On one wall in our gym, we kept putting bits of data to show progress. Because it's so easy to get to the end of the month and go, nothing's changed. But when you actually spend 5-10 minutes looking at it, you go, yeah, stuff has changed. Actually, this has improved and that's improved. And, this relationship's improved. Now I've actually got another, I got another few, watts of power here but we kind of get stuck in the bit and we don't see it. So we kept kind of coming back to this evidence wall going, yeah, it feels shit, but actually look at the difference that's made. The difference there is still progress happening. So that was kind of another important tool. And, keeping the picture alive in our heads. I had a really, really clear image of me standing on a medal podium with a gold medal around my neck. And when that image got a bit dull because I was tired, because things weren't working out, because it was really hard, I had to just spend a bit of time going, why am I doing this? And let's just sharpen that image a bit, and while the image was sharp, I was kind of more motivated. While the image was less clear, kind of everything was harder. So, making sure we spoke about what it was going to be like, what it was going to feel like, what it meant to us, emotionally. Why were we doing this? What was I going to get from it personally? What was it going to do for the people around me? So, keeping the image fresh and clear and bright was another pretty important thing to do, I think.
Yeah, oh, I love that. There's so much in there. So first, lean on others, pick each other up when they're getting down. That's great for a team sport. The second one I love most because anybody can do this, team sport or individual. Evidence wall. Show yourself the progress that you're making. I love this concept of zoom in to see the process, zoom out to see the progress. And sometimes we're so zoomed in at the process, which is great. I think we should be day to day. What do I need to do today? Not tomorrow, today. I love that. Zoom in. But what we're also missing, we miss a lot, is the zoom out. How far have I come? How far have I come in a week? How far have I come in a year? Sometimes we forget about that. We'll look at photos, a year or two ago, and we go, holy crap, I had no idea how far I've come. So zoom in to see the process, zoom out to see the progress. I think those two strategies are huge.
And I think your zoom in, zoom out bit, I think is a really great way of framing it. Because I think also, so the way to make the boat go faster was, the question, was going, am I going in the right direction? Let's kind of zoom out. Let's go, am I, get my head up. Am I going in the right direction? Is this the right way to spend my time? And then they're zooming in into the process, into the detail, going, really, how well am I doing this? What's the detail that fits in here? And so I think the zoom in, zoom out ability is really, really important in so many ways.
A big part of mental performance is being able to, exactly what you say in chapter 5, prepare for the unexpected. I think when I talk about mental toughness, preparation, resilience, it's being able to respond with adversity and being able to respond to the unexpected. I'm gonna imagine there were some moments of unexpectations that happened in your career. Walk me through what that looked like as a team. Did you have a rule? Did you have a process? Like when shit hit the fan, what'd you guys do? How'd you overcome some of that? How'd you prepare for the unexpected?
We um, we talked about kind of resilience and bounce back ability being a an advantage we could have over our competitors. Because stuff always goes wrong. Whether it just goes wrong to you as an individual, a crew, or, sometimes you get race day and there's a storm and things get cancelled. Sometimes it's the same thing for everybody. And you go, if I can deal with this faster than other people, then I have the advantage. And I remember the World Championships in Canada in '99. In a semi-final, we were in the same semi-final as a crew from the Netherlands, and they broke the world record. And it was a really kind of fast conditions, and the wind in rowing makes a big difference. Whether it was a tailwind or a headwind has a big impact. And it was a really kind of fast tailwind, and the Dutch broke the world record, and we were kind of second behind them, and the Dutch were kind of wandering around for the next day. We're going to be world champions. Here we go, all done. And on the day of the final, the wind had changed 180 degrees and it was this really storming headwind. And I remember coming down and the Dutch were kind of sitting, in kind of one of the areas in the boat tent kind of area, their kind of head down, and they were already been beaten. And meanwhile, we were going, and our view was, if the wind's coming from this direction, that's fantastic because it's just like that bit in Hammersmith. If the wind's coming this direction, we go, that's fantastic because it's just like that bit in Chiswick. If it's really hot and sunny, we're going, fantastic, perfect. It's just like that hot weather training camp we did in Italy. If it's cold and pissing with rain, we go, it's home, fantastic. And we kind of did loads and loads of scenario planning. what happens if there's a breakage on the start and we're all sitting there and we're delayed? How will we deal with it? And there are two bits to that. One is kind of the strategy, and the other is the mental bit. So you're going, if you're delayed, well, then you either sit on the start or you can actually row off and you can go up and down your lane a few times to keep moving. So there's the physical thing you can do, but then there's going emotionally, how do I respond to that? I might be rowing round, which is the right thing to do, but my heart's kind of, sunk and my head's going, oh my God, what's going to happen next? Or inside, I'm just laughing, going, this is going to put everybody else off. Here we go. So there was kind of, what do you actually do and how do you feel? And we spoke about both bits, and we did loads of scenario planning, some sensible stuff and some random stuff, because we found the more we scenario plan, then when the random stuff comes up, the unexpected stuff, you go, well, this is not too similar from that scenario. It's not too similar from that. And it all just becomes easier. And, different people had individual strategies, but if it was a crew thing that happened, one person would go, right, here's the plan, everybody happy, anything. And, we prided ourselves, now whether we were better than other people or not, who knows, but we prided ourselves on going, this is our bag. We can do this. We can do this so easily. And we planned and planned and planned and planned. And when stuff did go wrong, we then debrief it afterwards and going, right, how do we manage that? And some, one guy, oh, I got you really pissed. I tried to do it, but it really pissed me off, and go, right, how did that work? How do we change that? Because we got the kind of Pavlovian responses to stuff. And you go, how do you change it? How do you feel different about this thing? Because it'll help us make the boat go faster. And we worked a lot with the sports psych so we could change our emotional as well as the physical response to different things that came up. It was great.
You're speaking my language right now. I love this concept of make adversity your advantage. So what you're telling me is it's raining and you guys are clapping, going, bring it on. I'm ready for this. Or, hey, we got a headwind. Okay, awesome. Now here's an opportunity. I mean, what a great spin on it. And you look around, you see another team, they're already checked out, aren't they, Ben?
And we love the word fortunately. Oh, well, fortunately, that means, this has happened. Fortunately, that means that we could, and it's kind of a silly, fun way of doing it, but
But it works.
and you can fortunately anything you want. And you would kind of play stupid games of sitting around at various times, and someone go, oh, this has happened, and someone go, fortunately, and someone else go, I had a better fortunately than that. And, just kind of bouncing crap around, but just going, there are different ways of thinking about it. We don't, just because we were taught when we were young that rain is bad, doesn't mean it is. And why would you possibly give other people the advantage of going, these are my favorite conditions, or, these are my lucky socks, and pin, it's just purely down to what's in our head as to how fast we're going to go. So why would I pin a whole lot of stuff on something that I can't control, or that, if I lose my socks, I'm kind of done for? I mean, really? So
That's awesome.
yeah, it was fun.
I talk about this idea of contingency planning in my book, and it's kind of from the Navy SEALs. Nick Saban, one of the most winningest college football coaches of all time, he talks about him and his coaching staff every week. They set aside 20 to 30 minutes to meet in his office to go through all the what if scenarios. What if this happens? And there's nothing too silly. Like they'll do, hey, what if the lights shut off? Or what? I mean, just random stuff. And 98% of the time, it never comes up. But when it does, they have a plan and they're ready to go. And so the strategy there, I think, Ben, is literally taking the time to have those discussions either with your team or with your coaching staff of the what if scenarios. Because it's one thing to go, oh, yeah, like I think about them myself and I know what I'm going to do. But what about as a team? What are we going to do? Set aside time to go through what if scenarios.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I think that's absolutely right. And I think kind of team, I think it's always worth thinking about the wider team as well, because stuff goes wrong at home. So actually, scenario planning with the people at home with us, scenario, going, and how do we? Because they're also people we can lean on when times are bad. They're also, the team. I don't think was ever purely the guys I was in the boat with, the coaching, the boatman, the 70 of us. I also had a separate team. I had, various other kind of friends, partners, various people who would who were important to me being as good as I could be. So yeah, I mean, I kind of my fiance at the time, we did kind of some scenario planning as well about going, what if this, what if that, what if, because, or I'm trying to react to this differently, and it's more than just the athletic team, I think, who can help us if we want to be as good as we can be.
Yeah, the framework there that you say is prepare, accept, do. So prepare to the absolute extreme. Separation is in preparation. So prepare for what you want to have happen, prepare for what you don't want to have happen. And then that second one, accept. That's a huge one. So when the rain comes in, the storm comes in, instead of fighting it, why this, why that, just accept it and then do. Prepare, accept, do.
It's a really easy framework. It's really easy. And just, there's the whole thing, accept what you can't change, change what you can't accept. And you got to know the difference between the two. But, just there's no point, it's also tied into control the controllables, classic sports psychology talk. You're going, what are the things we can actually control? And that's where my time, my emotional energy should go. Worrying about a whole lot of other stuff. What I've got to be aware of is going, so when this stuff happens, what am I actually going to do? Because that's the stuff I can control. Um, and the other stuff I've just got to accept. I can't do anything about it. But what I can do is, you know, whatever's in my control.
You talk about in chapter 2, daydream and make it fun. And so I'm curious, is daydream in your words, Ben, is another word for that visualization? I ask because that's something that I talk about. So how did that play out? I think that's a topic that doesn't get talked about enough. I mean, it's still coming out, and the benefits are extraordinary. How did you guys use that 25 years ago?
So for me, there were kind of two bits of visualization, really. One was kind of from a motivational standpoint, I guess, of visualizing the outcome, visualizing, having a really kind of high definition picture of what it was going to be like on the podium, what it was going to be like crossing the finish line. There was, for me, that kind of area of visualization. And then the other area of visualization was visualizing the process. And actually just being able to feel and know exactly what the perfect stroke looked like, being able to, know what all sorts of different bits of the process were going to look like and feel like. Mental rehearsal is pretty, in many ways, is pretty similar to doing it for real. A lot of the neural pathways are the same. And actually, the times I raced the best, so technically, rode the best in races was after I had done the best bit of visualization beforehand. When I could kind of sit down and I could really kind of feel the rhythm before I got in the boat, invariably I rode the best.
Wow.
15, 20, 30 minutes later, whatever.
Was this
So,
the night before, Ben, or was it just right before you got, when did you do it?
so I did quite a lot of visualization just generally of going, the whole time we were just, I don't know about CrossFit, but, so many sports are about rhythm and timing. And rowing is a sport about rhythm and timing. And I'm not necessarily the most rhythmical person in the world. So really trying to get my brain into what does that rhythm feel like? What does it really feel like? How am I going to get the timing? How am I going to move the way I want to move? I did that quite a lot. And before racing, as part of the kind of warm up routine, there would be physical bits of warm up in there. I would also spend a certain amount of time just running through that rhythm and that timing mentally.
And then because of that, you stepped in and it felt like, hey, I've already done this before. I feel comfortable because I feel like I've already played this movie. I've watched this movie before.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's the neural pathways should be doing the same thing.
Hmm. Man, that's so cool. I love hearing about this. Thanks for sharing some of the insights. You spend a lot of time, Ben, I know, traveling around, doing a lot of seminars, workshops, working with businesses and organizations. I'm curious, from your standpoint, as you're in the trenches, I like to say, working with a bunch of different types of folks, what is a consistent struggle that you're finding yourself seeing in small organizations? I know for you, you competed on a group of 8, so maybe we kind of stay in that team realm. What's a consistent struggle that you're seeing when you travel around, and how are you helping folks out? Is it, if you could boil it down into one thing, what would that be?
So I think, well, I'm going to give you two things, I'm afraid. I think the first thing is lack of clarity, clarity of direction. So I think so often, and whether this would be with a sports team or with a business team, very often, if you go just write down your team goal, you'll get, a whole lot of people writing different things. I've got a daughter at the moment who's, she's another 23 world champion. She's competing in the US at, in the NCAA and stuff. And she, last year she was going, everyone write down your goals. Not, I mean, I was, digging her in the ribs and going, you should try this. And, it should be really clear to, get a medal at the NCAAs. And the differences that people wrote down were just extraordinary. And so, sport or business, I think there's something about the clarity of goal, really understanding what's most important. That's number one. And number two, so much of it is having a growth mindset, a performance mindset, however you want to frame it, where people are just willing to learn every day. Because working hard is fine. Everyone works hard. In sport and business, people work long hours, they train hard, they sweat lots, whatever. But actually being willing to learn from each and every session, being able to do a session and going, right, how did I get on? What worked? What didn't work? How do I make sure I'm slightly better? Rather than just, I'll pull harder tomorrow, I'll do more hours tomorrow, going, how will I actually be able to improve the shape of the false time curve, being able to improve the quality of my communication with this person, being able to improve as a leader within, there are so many different areas that we can improve every day. And yet so many people think the hard work is enough. And so those are the kind of two things for me, the clarity of direction and then the willingness to learn and improve and change the whole time.
If those are the top two, let's double click on them for a second. So I like this idea of what's important now. And what's important now is the clarity, the one goal. So I'm curious if you're working with an organization, Ben, and you get, hey, everybody write down a piece of paper, submit the paper, and everybody's got a different goal written down. As the presenter, facilitator, whoever's in charge there, what's the next step? How do you get everybody to go, whoa, 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 I got 40 different things here?
Well, so then you got to go through a process to get people. I mean, some people, the sentiment is the same, but the words they use is different. You go fine,
Sure.
but sometimes the sentiment or the direction in which those things take you are just different, and then you've got to spend a chunk of time going, okay, so actually, how are we going to get alignment on this? You've got to be able to discuss it, and generally one person standing in the front, they're going, this is what our team's going to be, or this is what. That doesn't get alignment. That, just, I think most good coaches, most good leaders, will talk to people about what they're trying to do. And, you've got to build alignment, because if the coach just says it's about, winning this competition or whatever, some people might buy and some may not. So that you've got to go through a process and it takes a bit of time to get alignment and agreement about going, our goal is to be, medalists here, or, some people are going, we're just not good enough. We didn't do it last year. If we can qualify, then, or, be a finalist or whatever, that'll be amazing. And, sometime in order for people to, commit to a certain thing, you've got to build up some kind of belief and confidence. You've got to show them the evidence again. But, if you look at this metric and this and this and this, we should be able to do this. And, so, there's a process to go through to get to the same goal and kind of belief and confidence in it.
And I would probably argue that, there could probably be one team goal, and then maybe everybody on the team kind of has their own personal goals. I'm sure there are some separation there. And as long as we're all in the same alignment, we're all kind of in this same funnel together, I think that's great. But I'm curious on what happens when somebody on a small team, like an 8-person, 9-person team, something like that. So what if 8 people say, hey, the goal is gold medal. That's what we're here for, nothing less. And then the ninth person or the 8th person, whatever you want to say, they're a little bit like, I don't know. I'd be happy if we just got to the Olympics. And they're not maybe as fixated on that top goal. What does it look like then when you got somebody who's maybe not, I don't know if commitment's not the right word, but their goal just isn't the same. Hey, I'm going to work hard as everybody else, but my goal is not to win a gold medal.
So, if I kind of come back to our team, our goal was winning a gold medal, and we were some way off it. And that meant that we had to be willing to challenge and push really, really hard. If the goal had been as a crew to qualify for the Olympics, yeah, if we had worked a bit harder, we might have done it. If we had to change it a little bit, we probably would have done it. But the fact of where the goal was, it meant that so much had to change. We had to have a different quality conversation. We had to be willing to learn different ways. We had to be willing to change our communication style so that we could land the messages better. Now, if you've got someone in the middle of it going, yeah, I don't really, my goal's kind of quite a lot lower than that, it means they don't have to go through the same process. It means they can kind of coast, and while you're trying to change, they can just get away with not doing that. And the whole kind of the in the run up to those World Championships 2 years before the Olympics, where we kind of we after those World Championships we made this, we had these conversations, we made the change, and the run up beforehand, one of the guys in the boat I just didn't trust. I didn't. I didn't trust him. He approached everything differently to me, and the fact was quite simple. At that point in time, he just wanted to qualify for the Olympics. He wanted a T-shirt with the Olympic rings on it. Yeah, that's what he wanted. And I wanted to win. I'd done that before. I'd done that twice before. I didn't want another T-shirt. I wanted to bloody win. And but we didn't have the conversation. But because we viewed stuff differently, because we worked differently, I just didn't understand why he didn't seem to give a shit. I didn't get why he wasn't going the extra mile, why he wasn't, and he didn't get why I was being such an asshole. Because we just had different expectations. And I think in a team, for the team to do, at elite levels, for the team to do well, people need the same goal. And individually, I've got to work on this, and I've got my own individual goals. But that thing is what we're really trying to do. And if I've got somebody who's aiming down here, it just isn't going to work. And in businesses, it's a bit different because, people do it for different reasons. But in sporting teams, I think getting everybody aligned is really important. Is really, really important. And if you want to be a high performing team in any arena, you need alignment. If you just want to kind of muddle through, then that's fine.
Fantastic point. I love that you said that. And it might come down to, hey man, maybe you're not fit for this team. Or hey gal, maybe this is not for you. And it might come down to that, right? Because at some point you might think like, hey, it's only one person out of 9, we'll be fine. And I'm going to argue at some point that person is going to either take over or create some toxicity. So even though maybe it's a small pocket, maybe it's only one coach on your coaching staff. Think of like a football team. If you have only one coach, it's like, they're not up to the standard, right? It doesn't take any more than that. Sometimes one person can bring that whole crew down. So understand, as the leader out there listening, I'm talking to my audience here also, Ben, is that the message is, if there's somebody that's not with you, they're not in alignment with your goal, and you've had the conversation, it might be time to let go.
Sometimes you got to make really difficult decisions because somebody's, they may not even be toxic. There may just be a bit of apathy,
Yes.
and that rubs off.
Yes.
You see somebody cutting a corner and you're tired and you're kind of on your knees, and then you cut a corner as well. You really want to do well, but somebody else is doing it, so therefore you can do it. And it just, the rot can spread. The person may not be malicious or anything else, but apathy is as dangerous as anything else. Mm. So if you really want to be high performing, everybody needs to be ambitious. Now, and earlier I said not everybody is capable of giving the same amount. So that's different. But if everybody is totally bought in and they are giving everything they've got, then I think that's really important.
So I'm going to double click on this. So the first one is what's important now, have clarity, everybody in alignment. The second struggle you're seeing is that there's not enough moments or time that teams are executing on the learning process. And so I talk about this success cycle, Ben, where it's prepare, perform, reflect. We are really good as an organization, as a sports world, I guess, if you will, on preparing. We practice all week. We play the game at the end of the week. We do a good job there, but we always forget that third step, and that's that reflection phase. So as a team consultant, Ben, what I'm doing is I'm working with teams and I'm helping them go through a reflection phase. What did you do well? What do you need to do better? How are you going to do it? And I'm giving them the opportunity to kind of have time in the week to go through that. It's a very small part of the week, especially if you're only playing once a week. But I'm curious for you, what's the advice to teams, organizations out there to insert time? If you say right now the number one thing, or number two thing people are missing out is the learning process. We practice really good. We go hard. We do all that. That's awesome. But you're missing the learning phase. What can my listeners do to make sure that they don't skip over that?
I mean, it's just got to be prioritized. There's no easy route that I know to it. Before in rowing, people train, the national team, people train, between 19 and 21 training sessions a week. And if you just approach every session going, it's just, it's 20 kilometers, I've got to get the heart rate right, that's all I need to do, you'll lose. What you've got to do, and I've got a one of the guys I rode with in Sydney. He he then became a coach, and he's now just coached the British men's eight that got a gold medal at the Paris Olympics. And they were in Tokyo under him. They were bronze medalists at the World Championships in 2022. They were world champions, and he came back again. That was great, but it's not good enough. People are going to catch us. In 23, they were world champions. He went, yeah, it's not good enough. People catch us. 24, they were Olympic champions, and you can guess what he's doing now. Every session, if you're just going, let me switch my brain off and I'll work hard over these 20 kilometers, my heart will be right, that's good enough. It's not good enough. Getting people together beforehand and going, this is the specific thing that we're all working on. Yes, we know the distance. Yes, we know the heart rate, but this is the specific skill we're trying to improve here. Coaching through it and coming away going, we know what we were working on, this specific skill. How do we do it? Did we make the change? If not, why not? How will we, then how do we approach it next session to make sure we can either make the change we were trying to make this time and didn't manage, or every session having a bit of planning time, then you go out and do it, and then a bit of reflection time. If it's just about sweating, it's not going to be good enough. We've got to be able to improve our our skill set, our capability. You spend an hour in a meeting planning or whatever it is, spending the last 3 minutes just going, how do we do? If it was a good meeting, what caused it to be so good? That question you asked, that was the kind of thing that opened it up. What wasn't so good? How do we make sure the next time we spend this hour, we're doing it better?
Yeah, success leaves clues, and so does devastation. Success leaves clues, so does devastation. So even if it went well, Ben, hey, why did it go well? Let's break this thing down, because
that's really important.
Yeah, it goes both ways, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So learning. It's too easy. It's too easy just to work hard.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to actually be world class, you gotta make sure you're learning every day.
Well said. I closed down my podcast, Ben, with the same question. It's called the $1,000,000 question. I didn't prep you for this, so I'm putting you on the spot here. $1,000,000 question looks like this, Ben. What do you know now that you wish you knew 25, 30 years ago? What do you know now that you wish you knew 25 or 30 years ago? And I always take off the table of, hey, you can't say there's nothing I wish I'd rather know because I live with no regrets. Take that out. What's one piece of advice you wish you knew 25 or 30 years ago?
I wish I had been faster to learn. It took me a long time to figure out that working hard wasn't enough. It took me a long time to figure out that actually I had to be learning every day. I thought working hard was enough every day. And if I had figured that out earlier, maybe I would have won more races.
That's a great distinction. That's a lot of wisdom there. Ben, this is a lot of fun. For my listeners out there, will it make the boat go faster? We can get this pretty much anywhere books are sold. How else can my audience follow you or support you?
I've got a website called Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? And we kind of, posting stuff pretty regularly on that. But the book is kind of probably the best way. It's, kind of paper copy, Kindle, Audible, various different versions.
Ben, thank you for your time. Thank you for your stories, and thank you for your wisdom. This is a lot of fun, man.
Been great talking to you. Thanks so much. Thanks for inviting me along.